I can have your attention, please. I am now very pleased to welcome the Department of Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, who will be interviewed by Senator Joe Pittman, the Majority Leader in Pennsylvania State Senate. Ladies and gentlemen, Doug Burgum and Joe Pittman.
Here. Very good, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for being here. We're very proud here in Pennsylvania to consider ourselves as the breadbasket of America whenever it comes to energy development and electricity. Talk to us a little bit as it relates to the United States. Thank you, Dennis. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here and joining us in the Commonwealth. We like to refer to ourselves as the breadbasket of America as it relates to electricity production. Tell us a little bit first about your view of red ink, black ink as it relates to the balance sheet of America and what energy development and AI development could mean for that balance sheet.
Well, first of all, I want to start off by saying thank you to you, Senator, and I want to thank Dave and Dina, and of course everybody that put on this great conference. But and also a shout out to President Trump, because we wouldn't be here talking about energy dominance. We wouldn't have the tech companies and the power generators and the energy folks all in one room talking about the real crisis that we have. And one thing that we need to do is unleash our balance sheet. America's been gifted with incredible natural resources. And everybody in this room knows how much national debt we have, because it gets pounded on us every time we have a presidential campaign. Everybody knows $36.5 trillion of debt. But when you ask the question, what are the assets? What's the asset side of America's balance sheet that counteracts that debt that we have? There isn't a number. And we could all leave now, go to DC, ask everybody we could find, and you can't find the number. But one of the things that we're committed to in this administration is really building that out, because the number is could be 100 trillion, could be 200 trillion, and a big chunk of that is the energy assets, because we're blessed. Now we've gone as a country with the shale revolution to now being the largest natural gas producer in the world. We've got enormous resources across all sources of energy. The USGS, which is part of the Department of Interior, has taken going back to their roots and, as we say, map, baby, map, and figure out where the resources are. And they've come out with a report that says we've got $8 trillion worth of coal in America. And we need that coal not just for electrical production, but also the metallurgical coal for getting us back in the steel industry, which they've talked about on panels earlier today. And then we take a look at a recent report that doesn't even cover all of the offshore we have, but a recent report is up the estimates that there's 30 billion barrels of recoverable oil on just on federal land, not that's private, and over 400 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. So we've got a massive balance sheet, but when you have an administration that says we're not going to develop it, essentially we're wiping out the resources of American people. And if we're going to run ads that say, hey, this much debt belongs to each American family, then we better know the balance sheet, the asset side, and say, oh, by the way, these resources that are on public land belong to the public, and those assets should be developed sustainably, smartly, and to ensure that we've got national security in our country, because that's key. A strong economy is key to that.
Staggering numbers you've identified. Amazing what the God-given natural resources we have here and what we can do with them. Talk to us a little bit about China and the existential threat that China poses, particularly as it relates to the race to develop AI technology.
Well, again, it's part of the reason why we're all here today and why President Trump has put so much attention on winning this AI race against China. I mean, really, this administration had identified early that there was two existential threats, and neither one of them was climate change. It was the Iran getting a nuclear weapon, which there's been good progress on, and then two is losing the AI arms race. And again, AI, as someone I spent 30 years in tech, software has been the greatest extension of human capability ever invented in mankind. And now with artificial intelligence, it's just a huge multiplier. You can't even go beyond that. I mean, it's not just, you can't just say software on steroids. I mean, it is an incredible impact. And we've never had a moment like this in our history where you can take a kilowatt of electricity, and I don't call them data centers, please. It's intelligence manufacturing. That's what's going on. You take electricity, you directly turn it into intelligence. that intelligence is a base productivity gain for every industry. I mean, it helps literally, it's going to completely disrupt. I mean, there'll be companies in our country that through this disruption will have their Kodak moment, as I say, because, Kodak famously, underestimated what was going to happen with digital photography. But this is going to could be a Kodak moment for every industry, whether it's higher education, whether it's the legal profession, all white collar jobs. I mean, the software the AI that's out right now can program better than most programmers. We've been saying and program better than great programmers. I mean, Greg Bachman, one of the founders of OpenAI, who's got to be one of the top 50 technologists in our country, sat on a panel this spring and said that their current version programs better than he does in 90% of the cases. I mean, it's a shocking thing. We've talked about having 300 to 500,000 students short in computer science, and every university was chasing this for years. And now you can take an AI and basically it's got Greg Bachman inside of it for free. And if you need 1,000 of them, you can just keep duplicating them. If you need 1,000, probate lawyers that understand Indian country, we can replicate them. And so this is going to have just profound effects, but not just on the economy and how it's going to increase productivity, but what it's going to do for advanced manufacturing, for healthcare, for biotech, for curing diseases that we've never been able to crack before. But on the flip side of that, if some other country or power that didn't believe in freedom or democracy had that power, and what does it mean for defense? Because there's no Iron Dome in Israel. We shoot down 395 of 400 missiles, and then that breaks through in the news, and we think, good job. But that doesn't happen without AI. And by the way, Israel had over 28,000 projectiles shot at them since October 7th. And many of those are not even reported, because then we're just like, and then we're like, what's the score of the ball game? And we take it for granted. But this capability, defense doesn't exist without AI in the future. And so whether it's national security, whether it's our economic leadership, AI matters, and AI can't exist without electricity. And we don't have enough electricity in this country. And that's why President Trump declared an energy emergency. That's why he created the National Energy Dominance Council, which he's asked myself to chair and Chris Wright to be the vice chair, Lee Zeldin, Howard Lutnick, Scott Bessent, all the people that are here today, also part of that council. This is a whole of government approach to try to solve the issue, to make sure we've got enough power to win the AI arms race.
Energy independence, economic security, national security, all go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Talk to us a little bit about your experience from your home state in the development of the shale play, as we've experienced it here in Pennsylvania as well, the technologies and what that has meant to the staggering numbers that you mentioned earlier about the resources we have available to us.
Well, one of the great misrepresentations of the shale revolution is that somehow, some way, and I think I'll put my bet it's Russian psyops, that's driving a lot of this whole era of climate extremism, because the shale revolution, we should get up every day and thank every person who had anything to do with the technology that drove the shale revolution. The shale revolution changed America. 20 years ago, we were a country where our total energy production was in decline. We were going to become increasingly dependent on others. This is back, during the time when Obama came into office. It was like, we've got to start doing renewables. We got to subsidize them in a massive way. And I have nothing against renewable. But I am completely opposed to having unreliable, unaffordable, intermittent energy as our future. And all you have to do is look to Germany. Germany has spent $500 billion chasing their version of a Green New Deal. And today they produce 20% electricity, and it costs 3 times as much. But they've managed to shut down all their baseload coal. They shut down all their nuclear. And then they put themselves in a position where they were buying, really dependent on Russian natural gas. So if you're trying to sell more Russian natural gas, then convince everybody to shut down every other form of energy. And let's stop being naive about it. The world works in ways where people will use the competitive tools they have. And as a governor, I knew that we were getting attacked every day by, our infrastructure, our systems, by Iran, North Korea, China, Russia. That's just happening. Talk to anybody that works for you in cyber, and they'll tell you that's the way it's been going. So it's like, and then we know, when Elon buys Twitter, 40% of those accounts aren't people. You know, they're bots, and they can be driving a message. So we have to get back to common sense, physics, and economics, and we're competing against China, and China is you know, 2/3 of their power comes from coal. They permitted over 100 gigawatts of new coal last year. These guys are, their line for electricity production is going to the roof. Ours has been flat. That's a great risk. But when I say we should be thanking everybody in the shale revolution, in a place like North Dakota, the Bakken, which you've heard of, it's only a 30-foot thick piece of rock, 10,000 feet underground, 30 feet thick. And American ingenuity, American companies figured out how to drill 2 miles down, turn a corner, and go horizontally for 2 miles. And the first time I was in a drill shack 8 years ago when I started as governor, and I'm with a 25-year-old petroleum engineer in a white lab coat. There's not a drip of oil. It's a teeny little super clean controlled pad. They're developing 2 square miles of energy production off this, the most limited amount of surface. It's not like a wind farm or a solar farm that takes thousands and thousands of acres. And I said, wow, how do you stay in that 30-foot stream of rock? And he said, sir, if your house was 2 miles underground and 2 miles away, I could drill the lockout on the front door. I mean, this is the technology that we have. That was the technology we had 8 years ago. Now, my last year as governor, 75% of the permits in the Bakken were 3-mile laterals, and people were being productive with 4. So think of that. Now I'm doing, instead of 2 miles of productive ability where I can do the hydraulic fracturing, now I'm doing 3 miles off the same well pad. What other industry do you know that had a 50% increase in their productive because of an innovation that they were able to deliver? So they're lowering the cost, they're producing this energy. Now we're becoming the world's largest exporter of LNG. And so fast forward to what went on in Iran recently. Iran, predictably, after we were successful in those strikes, said, we're going to mine the Straits of Hormuz. And when they said that 20 years ago, the price went to $100 a barrel. When they said it a few weeks ago, it didn't even move. I mean, maybe $1. I mean, and guess why? Because the U.S. is not getting any of our energy coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. But you know who called Iran? China. China imports 11.5 million barrels of oil a day. They called them. We predicted that it would not be shut down because China would put the pressure on them to do that. So we're in a position now where, you know, energy dominance means prosperity at home. It means peace abroad. It's how we end wars. It's how we build and advance every industry we have. It's how we create productivity in our country. So anyway,
Couldn't agree more. But you've talked a lot about
so hug a fracker the next time you see them, because they're without them we would not be in the position that we're in today.
We have a lot of them here in Pennsylvania. We're quite proud of them. Tell us real quickly, President Trump's leadership, the National Energy Dominance Council. What does that mean? What's the objective? How can we best use that to move forward in the ways you've described?
Well, think of the National Energy Dominance Council as you might if you've worked and interacted with a state, with the governor's office, and the governor's got an economic development team that wants your project to come in their state. They want to get it permitted quickly. They want to make it happen. Take that kind of concept, you know, and there are many states that have that. And those are states that are pro-development, pro-building stuff, pro-energy. We're replicating that model with experts that we brought in from the private sector and with experience at the state level. And so if any of you are working on trying to generate more power, if you're trying to, you know, build an AI factory, if you're trying to get a pipeline permitted, if you're trying to do any of the things that work towards energy dominance, we're here to help. We offer essentially white glove service to try to make sure, whether it's at the state, the federal, the local level, we can help you navigate and we can do the things to get things in. Because we want to, you know, we're not just drill, baby, drill, we're build, baby, build. We've got to be building the infrastructure to make sure that our technology is ahead in AI, but our energy infrastructure related to electrical production has got to keep up. And then we're also across the team that's here with, you know, Lee Zeldin, Chris Wright, and myself specifically, working a lot on making sure that we get the permitting streamlined. At the Department of Interior, we set aspirational goals for an environmental assessment in 14 days. It used to be the target was a year and it would take 2 years. EIS, you've heard about the weaponizing of environmental impact statements. They would take 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. The target was 2 years. We said 28 days. And you said, how is that possible you know, it can't be a work product. How will it ever stand up when it's challenged in court? Well, if the old process was I work on it for an hour and I email it to somebody and they've got 30 days to respond, it just sits in an inbox for a month and then somebody else picks it up and the next person. And if we're writing software, you know, and somebody said, I'm going to write a few lines of code, send it to somebody I've never met, let them add a little bit. And by the end of the year, you'd be like, what were we trying to do? I mean, some of this happens in the spaghetti web of permitting. We put together strike teams. We permitted a gas pipeline in Montana with an EA in 12 days. And I would put, if they challenge that, we will put the product that we delivered. We had more minutes on mission, more time on task. We'll put that product up against one that took a year or two and let a judge decide with a blind thing which of these products took 12 days and which took 2 years. We know that we can do the work. We can do it fast. We built the Alaska pipeline in 28 months. Back in the 1970s, we were a country that could build things. 28 months, that pipeline is 800 miles. It starts in the North Slope. It crosses a mountain range 4,100 feet high, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up, 3 mountain ranges and down. That thing hasn't had a spill in 50 years, and it was built with American ingenuity. And now we're trying to build a pipeline next to it, and people said, well, it'll take 10 to 15 years. What's wrong with our country? A big chunk of that is permitting. We've got to get back to be able to building great things and build them quickly, and we work for a president that wants the same thing to happen.
Mr. Secretary, we're thankful you're here. We're thankful for Senator McCormick's leadership, and we're certainly thankful for President Trump's leadership, and we're rooting for your every success.
Yes, and I'm going to close with one thought, Joe, for everybody that's here is don't miss this major economic fact. $320 billion, all the major tech companies are here. $320 billion is the CapEx budget of the 5 biggest US tech companies. $320 billion. You add up, take the 5 next industries that are the biggest in CapEx, take manufacturing, take autos, take anything you want. It doesn't add up to the $320 billion, and they want to spend it in the next year, and they want to spend it in places like Pennsylvania where they can get a permit and where they know that there's going to be ample energy supplies. We're going to see a divergence. President Trump is driving so much capital to America. The foreign direct investment numbers are going through the roof in terms of what people wanting to invest in our country. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to see a difference. States that have got that have a set of policies that were anti-baseload energy, anti-affordable energy, because you can look across our country and you can find a state nearby here that might have 2 or 3 times the price of electricity than it is in a state where I came from in North Dakota, where AI is about electricity. You develop intelligence through electricity. Where do you think those plants are going? They're going to go where there's stranded gas. They're going to go where there's low-priced electricity. There's going to go where there's an environment that says we want to get things done and built. And so, you know, I would just say again, if you're deciding where to put your money and you're following the economics, I can tell you where it's going to end up, and it's going to end up in places like Pennsylvania.
Thank you very much, both.